So I've used a few different security cameras lately, and the trend now seems to be that they are all battery powered, meaning that they are all super easy to install with no need of drilling holes and running power cables. Or you could get solar powered cameras, which in theory means you will have forever power, as long as they get enough sunlight. But the issue is with those types of cameras is that you still need a very good and strong Wi-Fi signal. So what happens when we don't have electricity and we don't have any Wi-Fi? Your wishes have now been answered. You can now get 4G solar-powered security cameras which can be placed pretty much anywhere, as long as you have a decent 4G connection and enough sunlight. And if you're watching this video, you probably already know where you're going to be positioning your camera, but if you're still unsure of why you want to get a 4G camera compared to a Wi-Fi camera, then there's a few things that you might not have actually thought about before. Maybe you've got a caravan or a camper van or a tent, and you're going to be going out off-grid in the middle of nowhere. These obviously won't work because you've got no power and no Wi-Fi, where this 4G one, as long as you've got a 4G signal, will still work. Maybe you're building a house or you've got a construction job in the middle of nowhere, you've got farmland or something. No power means no Wi-Fi, means these cameras won't work, but the 4G one will, as long as you've got 4G signal again. But it's not quite as simple as just buying the camera and slapping it up anywhere. There are a few things that we have to consider that we might not have first realised. And also a few hidden monthly costs, so if you're considering getting a 4G security camera, then I recommend watching this video first. Now I'm going to be talking mainly about this camera here, which is called the Rouom 4G wireless security camera, but mostly all of the things I'm going to be talking about will relate to most 4G cameras which are on sale at the moment. So like I said, one of the main reasons why we want to get a 4G camera like this is to be able to position it pretty much anywhere we want outside, where there is no power or Wi-Fi. So this camera is solar powered, which in theory should give us forever power, as long as it gets enough sunlight every day, and it also uses the 4G signal to send the data and images to your phone, so no need for Wi-Fi signal. And again, this type of camera could be super useful if you live in an area that is prone to power cuts. Yes, these are battery powered, but power cuts usually means that your Wi-Fi isn't actually going to work, which means these security cameras won't be working, whereas this one, being solar powered and battery powered and uses the 4G signal, means that this will still carry on working even if we're in a power outage area. So that is obviously a big win for these types of 4G security cameras, but that is where a hidden issue, or should I say hidden cost, is actually hiding. Being 4G means that this camera itself has its own SIM card, just like a mobile phone. And when I received this camera, it said it came with a SIM card, which I thought was great. But looking closer, I realized that it only came with 100 megabytes, which would only last no more than 7 days. So I guess that I was just being a bit naive, and I completely forgot that I would have to be topping up this SIM card with a monthly data plan to actually get this camera to work. No 4G data on the SIM card, no monthly contract to pay for that data, means that this camera just basically becomes a awkward drinks table, or whatever you want to call this, because this camera will not actually work without a data plan on that SIM card. It's not 4G and Wi-Fi, it's solely 4G. So no data plan, no monthly contract means it's a coffee table. And working out how much data you will need is tricky too, as that all depends on your use case. How often it's going to detect movement, how often you're going to stream the camera to your phone, and even how your footage is stored. Either on the micro SD card, which means that when you want to watch any of the footage, it's going to be using that 4G data. Or if you wanted to store the footage on the cloud, which again will be using loads of 4G data to upload that footage each time it detects any form of movement. Which brings me on to another potentially hidden cost. So if you do not want to store the footage it's going to be capturing locally on the micro SD card, and you actually want to store that footage and data on the cloud, then not only do you have to be paying for that monthly 4G data plan to actually send the data to the cloud, then you also have to be paying for a cloud data storage system as well to actually take those files and secure it online. Now, this manufacturer does try to help us out by showing us a graph of possible 4G data usage, saying that for occasional live stream watching, you could be using anything from 0.2 to 0.4 gigabytes per day, and uploading to the cloud could use another 0.4 gigabytes per day as well. And watching back any of the recorded footage from that micro SD card could use anything up to 0.9 gigabytes per day. So as you can see, we could be using a lot of that 4G data. And these data plans could cost anything from about £30 for 6 gigabytes for 3 months to over £100 a year for about 24 gigabytes. Now, you might actually be able to add another SIM data plan to your mobile contract, which might be cheaper and easier, but again, that's going to be a personal thing. You might have to actually make some phone calls and see if your phone contract provider can actually give you another SIM card with a data plan to be able to use on one of these cameras, but it could be a cheaper alternative. Also, if you don't live stream from the camera to your phone or watch back any of the recorded files from that internal micro SD card and just plug that micro SD card into your computer, then this will save a lot of that 4G data usage. But remember, you will still need some 4G data to make any changes to the settings or to be able to control that camera, and even to get notifications sent to your phone from the camera if it detects any movement. And if you do decide that you don't want to store that footage on the micro SD card in the camera, then you could be spending a lot more per month to actually allow you to store all of that footage up on the cloud. So that initial camera price of say $175 for the camera could easily start to cost you hundreds and hundreds extra per year to actually operate and use this camera. And that could be absolutely fine for you to buy the camera and then to be paying those extra monthly or yearly costs to actually use and operate a camera like this. But obviously I wanted to bring it up as well because some people might just see the initial cost of the camera, think that it's doable, then get it home and then realize that they can't actually afford to be paying all of those extra monthly or yearly costs. But the whole point of a camera like this is for security. So the cost of the camera and those monthly costs might actually save you a lot in the long run, because this should hopefully stop your house, your home, your construction site, your caravan, wherever you're going to be putting this, it should save it being broken into, hopefully. So if it's a toss-up of paying for a security camera or your home being broken into, then obviously buying or paying for a security camera is a lot better than the alternative. But if the alternative does happen and you are broken into or something stolen, then a security camera like this should actually save the footage, save the data, so you can actually use that as evidence and hopefully prosecute whoever is going to be potentially breaking into your home or construction site. And that's the whole point of these security cameras, and especially these 4G cameras. Put them pretty much anywhere we want and have peace of mind that our belongings are being protected, and you can't really put a price on that. Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about this camera specifically. The Rouom, I still don't quite know how to pronounce that name, the S1 4G wireless security camera. And I know the look and design of a product is a personal preference. Some people might really like this, some people might not like this, but for me personally, I feel like it's big, it's very white and plasticky, and I feel like the whole design just seems quite dated. Look, yes, I know the design has to incorporate the big battery, the solar panel, the antenna, and the camera, but it just seems all bloated and not very sleek or modern looking. The actual main body of this camera is 20 centimeters long, 10 centimeters wide, and 20 centimeters tall. The solar panel does seem fairly decent, so hopefully that does mean it's efficient, as the size is 15 by 20 centimeters, and it is super thin at only 5mm. But when that solar panel is attached, it increases that size from 20 to 25 centimeters tall, but when we actually angle it or we go to the top of the antenna, that actually makes the size up to 30 centimeters, again making it very large. And you'll notice that you can only angle that solar panel forward and back and not left and right, which might make it a bit of a pain when we're trying to get it in the right angle to get the best position for the sun. But the solar panel does charge the inbuilt battery, which has a total capacity of 16,000 milliamps, which is located in this back section. The two 18cm long antennae are to receive that 4G signal, which both spin and articulate around nicely, yet fairly flimsy. which made me look at them even closer, and I noticed something rather strange. This one here, it doesn't do anything. This left one just pops off. There is no cable going through it, which makes it completely useless and pointless, which is a super weird choice to add this one on in the first place. Maybe to help give it some symmetry, or to make it seem big and more professional than it actually is, or in my eyes, a complete waste of plastic. So basically, this one has a cable running through it to capture that 4G signal, and this one is not needed. Right, enough of that. On the back, there is a large baseplate mount that the camera slides into, which feels fairly secure. Mounting it is super easy. Choose your desired position, preferably with some sunlight for that solar panel, and use the 4 screws which are included to mount that bracket. Once the plate is mounted, we can then click the camera into place. But there is not any locking screw connecting the camera to the mount, which I personally think is a bit of an oversight. So not having a locking screw means that someone could quickly and easily just walk along and take it down if they wanted to. I probably should actually, put this back on for the aesthetic of the whole camera. And talking about the camera, let's talk about it. The image quality, and also you'll notice that it pans and tilts as well, which we can actually control with the app, which we're talking about in a moment. It's a 1080 HD camera with a 130-degree field of view, and can rotate 320 degrees and also tilt 90 degrees. We also have the PIR sensor, which detects any movement, infrared lights, and spotlights. It also has a mic on the front, and also a speaker on the back for two-way communication. By undoing this screw here, we have nothing. Well, access to the circuit board and a whole lot of space. So I guess they could have made it a bit smaller. Anyway, under this floppy rubber section is where we will find the power button and the reset button. And also the 2 slots for our 4G SIM card, and also our micro SD card if you want to store the footage locally to the actual camera. And finally, the micro USB charging port. And yes, this camera does come with a USB cable to charge it, which we will need to do when we first get it, and it can take up to 8 hours to fully charge. But hopefully we won't have to keep charging it using this cable because of the solar panel. If we positioned it correctly, there should be enough sun to keep this thing ticking over forever. But if it is in a shady area, or if it's winter and we don't have much sun, then you might have to take it down off of its mount and give it a bit of a top up using this cable. And when I say floppy rubber section, I do actually mean that. This rubber gasket should stop any water and moisture getting up inside of the camera. But as soon as I mount this camera outside, that floppy rubber section just falls out. Even though they state that this camera is waterproof, having that unreliable rubber gasket hanging out of the bottom of the camera just does not give me any confidence. So for me personally, I would probably add a bit of duct tape to this to stop it falling out and any moisture getting up inside of the camera. And talking of the camera, the quality is actually fairly decent considering it's only capturing 1080 HD footage. It does fairly well exposing the scene, and we can make out quite a lot of the details. Having the ability to zoom in on the image is nice, even though it does pixelate quite a lot, which is understandable considering it's only HD footage. And being able to control the pan and tilt of this camera is really nice, as that does mean that we can cover a lot of the location with only the need of using one camera. But the pan and tilt is only manually adjustable using the app. It does not auto-track when it detects any movement or pan around by itself. And I had a mixture of good and bad experiences with the notifications when it detected movement. Sometimes it notified me within a few seconds, other times I could be stood in front of the camera waving and I just would not receive a notification, which is slightly worrying and not 100% trustworthy. So overall, would I recommend this specific camera? Probably not. But personally, I do really like the fact that 4G security cameras are now a thing. They give us far more versatility than basically being governed by Wi-Fi or power. These things we can pretty much put anywhere we want, within reason like I explained, as long as we have enough sun and as long as we actually have a 4G signal. But that does mean that we do have to sort out those monthly 4G data plans to actually use and operate a camera like this. And if you want multiple cameras or a lot more cameras than just the one, then that obviously is going to dramatically increase those monthly costs, because you're going to need a SIM card to be placed in each one of these types of cameras. The Wi-Fi cameras, you can tend to put a whole load together and it's not going to be costing you any more a month. but they need a Wi-Fi signal where these don't. So I would love to know, what do you think in the comment section down below about 4G security cameras compared to Wi-Fi cameras? What are your thoughts on these types of cameras? I would love to know in the comment section down below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I've got a whole bunch more videos coming out very, very soon. And if this video was interesting and informative, a cheeky like would be appreciated as well. And until next time, I will see you very soon.